as well.
BBC Coventry and Warwickshire.
Now, a 50-metre high big wheel. That's big. Hang on. That's this big. Yeah, about that big. It could be coming to Stratford. Yesterday afternoon, District Councillors backed the idea in principle for a 6-month trial from next spring. They'd already been approached by 3 operators, even before yesterday's Cabinet meeting. And BBC Coventry and Warwickshire's Liz Saul went to Stratford to have a look at the proposed site.
I'm standing in the recreation ground car park in Stratford. It's hard to imagine that this could be the scene of a huge observation wheel, or Ferris wheel as you and I might know it.
Stratford's an odd town in that the locals have a particular opinion on how the town should be run, but also we do encourage and welcome a lot of tourists. So trying to find something that appeases both parties, I think, is tricky.
The proposed site of the observational wheel would be right next to the View Fish and Chip Shop, which is owned by Carl Harrison.
If we look at the positives, hopefully more people on our doorstep. The negatives, you have to be careful that if it's as close as I expect it to be, we still need to be able to manage our space and make sure that we're identified as something unique and not just part of the park. What I've been led to believe is it should have mostly positive effects on us, and again, the negatives should be outweighed by those positives.
Carl does have reservations about it being a long-term fixture in the town.
I'd have to see what it physically looks like. My instinct says it would lose its novelty, it would lose interest quite quickly, but I could be completely wrong. My personal opinion would be 28 days and see how it goes.
I suppose on that basis, similar to the Mop Fair, that OK, it's here every year, but it's only here for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, exactly, and I think it would be like living in a fun fair. You wouldn't, it sounds great for a couple of days and you'd eat all the toffee apples, but I think you might become saturated somewhat. And Stratford being the town that it is and the history that it's got, I'm sure there would be objectors to it on grounds of taste. My dad, for one, probably would have been those, but I'm a different generation, and I think that I'd like to see its merits before I judge it too much.
Despite the rather blustery conditions, there were quite a few people around using the recreation ground and the car park. And there were some fairly mixed views about whether there should be a big wheel here or not.
I think it's nice to leave this more natural, and I think it's unfortunate if we start making it into a fun fair. It's not that type of place.
But yes, I agree. I think it's a bit tacky, actually.
No, I think I could think of something a little more original than that. It's just a small... This is Stratford, not Birmingham or Coventry.
I think it lowers the tone, to be honest. It is a nice market town with lots of connections to Shakespeare, brings in stacks of tourism. Ferris wheel, OK, the Mop Fairs, fair enough, but not as a permanent fixture. Bring the wrong sort of people, really, not the ones who appreciate the culture and everything else that's here.
Excellent, I think it's a great idea. Somewhere to bring the kids. Or grandkids, I should say. I would definitely support it if it was here. It's something a bit different after being on, like, the London Eye. There's not too many around. See Stratford from a different angle.
Broadly speaking, the view among local people here is that the prestige of the town could be at risk if something such as a big wheel was brought to Stratford. They're concerned it might not fit with the overall picture or perception of Stratford as a historical town, a medieval town rich in Shakespeare's history. But when it comes to the council, it could be a case of the amount of revenue it will generate.
Who was that lady there who said, I think it lowers the tone? I don't think it lowers the tone. It's going to bring people in. OK, you couldn't have it there all the while, because the thing about these things is I've seen these things quite close up, and they sit them on big wooden pallets to level them, so they're perfectly level. And then the foundations, such as they are, it's basically massive water tanks that hold them down, stop them blowing over. But I mean, it's not a permanent thing. It can only be there for, I think, 6 months. It can't be there for any longer than that because it begins to sink. The ground begins to sink. So right in the recreation ground there, I think that'd be a lovely little picture, especially in the spring and summer months. Fish and chips and that shop are lovely, by the way. Anyway, BBC Coventry and Warwickshire's Liz Saul at the recreation ground in Stratford. The proposed site of the observation wheel. Big wheel, they call it in our family. In the next hour, we'll be speaking to the head of technical services at Stratford District Council, Tony Perks, to ask him more about these proposals.
BBC Coventry and Warwickshire travel.
Look at the time already. Oh no, if you've got to be out of the house, by the way, in 10 minutes, I'll get a wiggle on if I was you. Coming up to 5:30.